Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to our webinar, STAR Service, helping customers to simulate moving to cloud. I'm Tanya from the Global User Groups organization and your host for today. Before I introduce our expert, I would like to ask you to share any questions you have in the chat. We will answer them once the presentation is over. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Falco Grünke, Regional Head of License Utilization and Compliance from the Global License Audit and Compliance at SAP SE. Falco will provide insights on STAR, the SAP S/4HANA Trusted Authorization Review, a tool and service with which you as on-premise customers can simulate and calculate your full usage equivalent requirements for a shift to S/4HANA. And with this, Falco, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tanya, and also a warm welcome from my side. It's a pleasure today presenting our new service. Maybe before we are starting with the service, just a few words. So the license utilization and compliance is our newly formed team within license audit and compliance to deliver an end-to-end service to our customers in regards to license audit and compliance. When we're looking today into our new service, the S4 Trusted Authorization Review, also called STAR, the STAR service itself has been developed together with customers. So we had a project together with a couple of pilot customers working on a new service offering addressing the needs of our customers. In the next slides, I will quickly go through first from the initial problem statement we want to solve, the principle of the service, what are we looking into, the tools itself, and also, of course, how you can request it and how we are running the service ourselves. I'm very happy to answer afterwards questions, so please use the chat function and go ahead. So which challenge do we want to address? So we are looking here with the STAR service into the cloud transformation, but also into the S4 user classification. So when you're transforming towards S4 and including the RISE opportunities and the private cloud offerings of SAP, you're also moving into a new license world. So we are stepping away from the classical named user license model, which is formerly known from the ECC era. We're moving into a new one with simplified S/4HANA user types, and those types are differentiating from the ECC world. And there is not we have not the possibility to have a one-to-one mapping exactly because they are, as said, differentiating. And when you're moving into the private cloud, on top, we have the more flexibility because we are offering the full use equivalent, which allows you to shift the users between the user types whenever needed. In the S4 world, users are only required to access the core system functionalities, and therefore the whole service is also focusing on the S4 core systems. And important is to know that pure use of engines will be covered via different licenses and does not require a dedicated user type. And that's what we are trying to achieve here with our service, and addressing the needs to generate the transparency so that when you're in the position to move from your current ECC contract and deployment into the new offerings of S4 and our private cloud offerings, that you can get the transparency and take the business decision based on a clear overview. So our estimation approach, we are mapping the users to the S4, which means that we are looking into your today's environment, so your today's systems based on your current authorization assignment, and independently what kind of user types you have today from the professional, employee users, worker, and so on and so on. The current classification is visible but not relevant for our service offering. The service goes on the authorizations of the users. So we are looking into the authorizations which are currently assigned to the users. And based on those authorizations, we are mapping the users accordingly to the new user types. So you can see here on the right side of the page, the S/4HANA use types. On the top, you see the professional use, functional use, productivity use, which is the on-prem use types. In the private cloud, it's the advanced use, core use, and self-service use. Those are the users we are trying to generate a mapping based on an authorization assignment. And this is part of our rule set and part of the tools which I will introduce later on. Let's have a look into it and see how we are doing it in our service and with the tools you can also use as a self-service. So when we are looking into users in a system, users have usually assigned profiles and roles, and those profiles and roles can be structured individually based on your own requirements. And we do have standard roles, but it is pretty common to have individual roles for your own environment. Nevertheless, when we are going one level lower into the authorization objects, there are plenty of authorization objects in an SAP system, and those are usually standardized and also used within your individualized roles and profiles. And this is actually the level into which we are looking in when we are running our assessment. So the service itself will not look up the roles and profiles. It is looking up the authorization objects which are assigned to the profiles and roles. And based on the objects which are assigned and the along-coming activity, this is actually the level we are looking into. As an example, for example, here the read-only activities, for example, do require always only a core user. So independently where you're looking into, when we're looking into activities like change, create, those are the ones which then can trigger higher user classifications. The rule set is including all of those and will then look into your roles and profiles based on the authorizations in there, making an assessment, and then also making an assessment for the users, the individual users in your system, so that you can see which user would be classified in which way. And the same is possible also for the roles and profiles, if this is the area you want to look into. Authorization objects can link only to one transaction, but it is also possible that authorization objects are relevant for several transactions. So there's not a one-to-one mapping possible, but it is giving you a relatively clear picture also for the transactions. Let's start today with the authorization object analyzer. So this is our self-service tool we are offering to customers with the star service, but it can be used also without the star service. The tool itself is a report which is available with the SAP node 3113382 and can be downloaded into all S4 core systems or ECC core systems. And if you're looking into the node itself, besides the coding, you will find there also the rule set, which is coming along in an Excel format. We do have a guideline also how to handle the tool itself. And the tool is coming in a standard in English, so it will be automatically installed in English. If you want to change into a different language, we are offering also the text form for a couple of languages in there. So if you want to switch to German or any other language, just have a look in there. Usually it should be in, and it can be then deployed accordingly. Otherwise, English is the standard, and if you're logging onto your system, it will be automatically there. So let's start on the top with the initial screen of your of the authorization object analyzer. So there are 3 tabs on the top usually which can be chosen. You can choose the user validation, you can choose the role validation to identify the classification of specific roles, and you also have the opportunity, if you have gone through earlier some executions, that you're seeing the history of your executions and the changes. So in our example here, we have started with the user validation. Important is that you're looking into the users which are relevant for the future, which means mainly that should be the dialog users, so the persons which are logging on as named users into your core system. So you can choose the user type accordingly, and the system is also asking you for the rule set. So when you have downloaded the rule set from the node, you can just link it here accordingly, and then the rules will be considered according to the downloaded file. By executing the node, you will see a result of your users. And on the very left side, you can see the user classification as it is today in your system, so that you have also a feeling for which user type those people had beforehand. And then when you're coming more to the left of the picture, you can see the future use type, which is based on the current assessment of roles and profiles and authorization objects at the end, which would be the use type which this user would require if he remains as is. By clicking on the user numbers, you will always get a list of all the users which are considered accordingly. So if we are clicking here on one of those numbers, you will see all the users which have the, for example, the use type professional, and then you can dig into those users in a more detail. You can see on the very bottom here the users, the user ID, as well as the future user type, the current user type, and you will see much more information, like also the you can identify the roles, the authorization objects, etc. From the user type, from the user validation, you can also jump directly into the role validation and vice versa, depending on what you want to look into for the moment. When you're going into the role validation, you will get the role the role, the description of the role. You will get details around the role, as well as how many authorization objects are included there, which ones have been, or how many of those have been classified accordingly. And then you can see, if you're digging into a specific role, that you have also the details on the objects to see which objects have been now classified, which are part of the core, which are outside of the core. We do have some engine information in as well, and you see which objects actually gave the basis for the classification according to the high-level overview on the top. So these are the details. The tool itself is still developing. So as said, we've started the whole project together with pilot customers, and we are still, as part of every engagement, checking whether there are still some details which would be positive to be included, and then we are trying to get them into the tool. So also when you're installing the tool and you want to rerun it after a couple of weeks, just have a check whether the node has some feature updates. It's a living node, and it's definitely going forward. What we do have, as said, we have the rule set, which includes the majority of the core objects with the authorization assignment. We do have some engine indicators for specific products included to highlight if a user is also using engines. We have the option to validate users as well as roles and profiles. You have the drill down, you can jump from one to the other. And you can also, as said in the previous executions, you can compare the versions of your runs. Important is later on for the star service. If you're requesting a star service, you can generate an encrypted file here, which hashes then all your user details, so that when you're working together with SAP, you have the opportunity to work on those specific details of your own environment. When we're looking now into the star service, so what is the service offering on top of this tool? So the tool, as said, can be used as a self-service by every customer, and allows you to see the as-is status. And also, if you're doing some changes in your environment, you will see immediately the effect if you're rerunning it. On top, we are offering here the star service, which can be requested in the subportal, and it's included in your regular, so there's no additional payment required for running the service together with us. Important is that you have the node installed already on your systems, ideally, and then we are going in discussion with you, looking together in your as-is analysis to come up with an initial understanding of the use types assignments, and also the FUEs. And then the work of our experts will start with analyzing together with you the roles and objects with high impact on the licenses to identify potential saving opportunities, and going also into the engine scenarios in more detail. What we can do then with the hashed file is we can run simulation runs, which means that we can exclude certain objects from roles in alignment with you to see what would be the impact if we are excluding those, because, for example, they are not relevant or the user group doesn't require them. They just historically grown, and then we can exclude them, running simulations to see the impact on the user type assignment, and also at the end, the license requirement which would be needed for the transformation. All those simulations will be executed in alignment with you and the colleagues who are working with you here from our team, and the results will be highlighted also after the simulations. So we get the result from the very initial one, and then every change is documented. So if a role is adjusted, that what kind of impact would that have to the user types, and we can run several simulation runs to highlight the importance and giving you an overview. And also we do have some on top some recommendations for the future assignment. Important is that the star service is offering a technical approach. So we are focusing on the roles and authorization objects from a pure technical assessment. And of course, all of those changes which we have executed in a simulation would then require a business validation together with your business units to make sure that even if it looks from a technical perspective like profiles could be adjusted, whether this also fits to your business requirements from your end users. And based on this assessment, then you can decide whether you want to include those or not in your new environment, and optimizing accordingly. All the information and also the simulation runs and the adjustments which are considered in the simulations will be summarized in a service report. And the service report will be then handed over after the closure of the engagement, so that you have then the full transparency and can decide based on the assessments and the simulations which direction you want to go and what kind of what kind of user types or license volumes you require. One important feature is if you're looking into the node, independent now of the star service, or if you're doing it in your self-assessment, if you're feeling comfortable with the result and you want to do a user classification, you can choose the option of having a role-based user classification, which means that all the roles which have an assigned user type based on your analysis with the business object analyzer, you can transfer this classification on the roles. So every role will have then a user classification, and your users in the system who are not manually classified will then automatically, based on their role assignment, receiving a user classification accordingly. Looking quickly into the star service, the end-to-end process. You will find the request in the SAP support portal here on the area of global license audit and compliance. It is available for all our customers, and you can request there the service itself, but you will also find details around the node and the functions. The node installation, as said, can be run as a pure self-service. And if you're figuring out that you want to run some simulations, or you have questions and want to get more details, or you just want to have an expert view on the topic, you can just choose the star request form, requesting the service, and then within a couple of days, depending on the current volume of requests, our colleagues will reach out to you and will verify with you the requirements you have, and slice and dice the request based on your individual requirements. And then together with you, we will go into the service delivery. And as said, it is an individual support here, depending on your interests and requirements. And as just described on the last page, the service report will be then handed over to you at the end of the engagement. So that's the very draft overview of our service offering, as well as the tools coming along. And I can just highlight, if you are interested in supporting also the future features of the tool, just reach out to us. We are more than happy working with you together. And we would definitely also look into working with you on star services and supporting you on the way of transformation and finding the right license levels for your future contracts. And with this, Tanya, I would be at the end from my presentation and would hand over back to you for Q&A.
Thank you, Falco, and thank you very much for your excellent presentation. So far, we don't have any question in the chat, but I have received some questions from the user groups, from the user group members. And while waiting for questions in the chat, I would like to ask the questions that we have been asked. So the first one is, where do we find the rule set?
Yeah, as highlighted in between, the rule set is attached to the node itself. So if you're accessing the node, you will have an area where you find the attachments. And there we have the rule set attached, as well as the language offerings, and also a guideline for how to handle the tool.
Thank you. And then, can the report also be executed on S4 systems, or is it only possible on ECC?
It's possible on both ECC as well as S4 systems, and it can be used to simulate a move into the cloud or into the S4 world, but it can be also used for the classification. If you already arrived in the S4 world and you want to classify your user according to the new price list, that would be all possible as a use case.
Okay, thank you. And can we do all on our own as customers, or are you, and what are you doing as SAP in this service?
Yeah, so the business object analyzer itself is a tool which can be used as a self-service. The tool itself is looking into your current assignment of roles and profiles in your system. So the as-is situation can be identified and verified individually on your own. When it comes to simulations and the possibility to exclude objects without impacting the business, this is where SAP support is required, because with the business object analyzer, this functionality is currently not available.
Okay, thank you. And then when we send our data to SAP, is it anonymized?
Yeah, it is. So all the user information will be hashed. So it's an anonymized version of what you can see in your own system. So you have the possibility to download it for your own with the user details included. And if you're going into a SAP Star service, we are going for the version with the hashed user details.
Okay, thank you. And then what do we get as a result of the service?
So as a result, you will have the overview of the simulations and the impact of each adjustment. And this is summarized then in a report together with the recommendations, so that you have on one hand the results, the overview of the simulations and recommendations of SAP in a written format, which should be then can be the baseline for the future decisions.
Thank you. The last question I have so far is, when we have several systems, is the data then also consolidated?
So the business object analyzer is looking system by system. So with a self-service, currently a consolidation of results is not possible. If you are going into a star service with SAP, we have possibilities to validate the results and consolidate cross systems based on the typical criteria.
Okay, thank you very much, Falco. So far, we don't have any live questions in the chat. So, and I would say if any questions still pop up afterwards, feel free to reach out to me and I will contact Falco accordingly to help you with your questions. So,
right.
Still no questions.
Also, thank you very much to everyone joining the session and the stream. It was a pleasure introducing, and I hope we can see each other then during our engagements.
Thank you very much, Falco, for your presentation. And then with this, I will end the stream, and I wish everyone a great day, a great evening, depending on where you are. See you soon again. Bye-bye.
Bye.